Everybody, it's Adi Shakoya here from Agile TV at the Agile Development and Better Software Conference East in 2013 in Boston, where it is cold.
I mean, it is cold.
Cold, right? The one that gets right into your bones type cold. But right now I'm fortunate to be with the one and only Linda Rising. Hello, Linda.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
Thank you for taking time out from your busy schedule to join us.
My pleasure.
Most people watching this right now are going to know who you are. For those of you who may not, do you just want to just give us a quick introduction to yourself and a bit of your background, please?
Sure. I live in Nashville, Tennessee. I'm an independent consultant. I've written a book called Fearless Change, which is about patterns. So I'm definitely interested in patterns. I'm definitely interested in agile development. But what I talked about here was how your brain works.
Okay.
And I think that one of the things that's important for people in our industry is to realize that maybe we don't know what thinking really is.
Okay.
We think we know what thinking is, but in reality, we're unaware of a lot of things that the neuroscientists are telling us about better ways of thinking. So I've been doing a lot of reading and paying attention to the enormous amount of research. And what I did was put together a lot of thinking tips.
Okay.
Trying to help people do a better job of solving problems, making decisions, and taking advantage of what the research shows us are better ways.
Okay. So is this about the fact that potentially a lot of people who think they're thinking are not thinking consciously and therefore subconsciously not thinking type thing?
Yeah, or both, because as you said, there are two pieces. There's the conscious mind, which is the little voice that chatters in your head all the time. As soon as you wake up, it starts talking to you, and we think that that's what thinking is, conscious deliberation. But there's a huge other area of our brain, the unconscious, and there are times when that does a better job for us. And what we need to do is be aware that there are the two pieces, and when one is more appropriate and when the other one is more appropriate, and ways of going back and forth. So one thinking tip is, I always ask the people in my session, what's the longest amount of time you've ever sat in front of a computer screen, staring at a problem, working, and not getting up ever, not getting up to eat or get a cup of coffee or go to the bathroom? What's the longest amount of time you've just spent staring? So I'm going to ask you, what's the longest amount of time you were working on something and your conscious mind said, I am not moving. I am not getting up till I get this done. This is the way to do it, is sit and stare at that screen. What's the longest amount of time? Tell our listeners.
That's a great question when I think about it. My nature is one of stubbornness, so sometimes in the past when I was less conscious about the things I did, quite stubborn. So I have been known in the past to do, you know, anywhere from sometimes 5 hours.
5 hours.
Yeah, just sitting there like...
That's a long time.
Yeah.
Without going to the bathroom, 5 hours?
Yeah, it's like when sometimes, you know how it is, sometimes when you get into that zone, it's like, you know, everything else just stops and it's like, I'm going to treat myself to all of these things after I solve this problem.
Absolutely. I think that's, we all subscribe to that myth.
But funny thing is, what I've learned over the years, it's in those moments where it's like, I've assumed I've been defeated and gone away. Whilst I'm doing something else, it's like,
there it is, there it is, absolutely. So the record, since I've been doing this for several years, the record is 16 hours.
Wow, 16 hours.
And when I asked that person, a nice young lady in Chicago, did you really sit for 16 hours? Then they always tell me, the record holders say, but yes, I did sit for 16 hours, but I solved the problem.
Wow.
And the implication is that that's the best way to do it.
Okay, learned behavior.
To sit, to stare, to focus, to not eat or drink, to not go to the bathroom, to not sleep, to not rest, but to put that intense, focused attention on a task. And what research shows is that we're much better, much more effective. Our solutions come quicker if we work for a certain amount of time, and this is up to you. You should decide what your optimum time is. But if you don't measure it, how will you know?
True.
Some small amount of time, let's say it's 90 minutes, that's a common amount of time, and then you take a break. Because as you were just saying, how many times have you given up and you just said, this is it, I'm going to go home, I'm going to take a nap, I'm going to go get something to eat, I'm going to go to the bathroom, and bingo, as soon as you stand up, there it is. There it is. So that's a good instance of where you were using your conscious, slow, chattering mind, focused on the problem, when underneath it, that enormous unconscious mind has probably all got it figured out and just can't break through, just doesn't have a way to interrupt your conscious chattering to say, I know the answer, I can tell you, it's 42, it's 42. You just don't want to listen. So taking breaks is a good way to hand over your attention to your unconscious mind to say, all right, I've consciously been thinking about this, I've been struggling with it, and now I'm going to take a break. And in that break, all of a sudden your unconscious mind can let you know a lot of ahas and insights. So don't force it. I have a picture in the presentation about Einstein riding his bicycle. He was famous for riding his bicycle around the Princeton campus when he was stuck. And he'd just get on his bike and he'd ride around and suddenly have a lot of inspiration. So take a break and do that regularly. Sometimes I envy smokers because they never sit for 16 hours. They would never sit focused without taking a break. They would always take a break. And not only would that allow time for inspiration, but they'd go out and talk to their friends, they'd pick up some gossip, they'd maybe share some ideas about problems they were working on, get some ideas. So that kind of a break where you just relax, get away from it, is a good time for your unconscious mind to help you be more effective at problem solving.
And it makes sense because I'm sure you know what the stats is. They say we only use a very small percentage of our brains.
Yeah, because there's that enormous unconscious that never forgets. It remembers everything you've ever done, everything you've ever read, everything you've ever thought, while that chattering conscious mind, well, it's linear and slow and it forgets. So that's what we use most of the time, and we should be taking advantage of the power of the unconscious.
And for a lot of people who have been used to, after how many years of thinking in that way, that's going to require a degree of change, which brings us on to discussing your book, Fearless Change. How do people deal with change, which is internal in this situation, but also change in an organization? Because in many ways, what we're proposing here is a different way of thinking, and therefore, as thoughts lead to emotion, emotions lead to actions, and actions lead to results. How do people go about dealing with that emotion of fear that might prevent them from taking those steps?
Most of the time when we hear a good idea, whether it's, well, we should all take breaks, or Agile software development, wouldn't that be cool? Why don't we transition to Agile? And we have in mind some enormous upheaval, some big, giant change. We do that all the time when we make New Year's resolutions. We're going to run a marathon by June. I'm going to start training now. Or we're going to change our diet. I'm going to eliminate potato chips. Or we have some big change in mind, and we want to just make it happen. So we've got a big goal, and goals are good. But what the research shows, and what Fearless Change is all about, is that the more effective way to change, whether it's an organization or whether it's a person, whether you want to change your own habits or you want to change the way your company does software, is to take small steps.
Right, incremental.
The transition should be made just as Agile development produces software through a step-by-step small transition process. And the reason for that is exactly the same as the reason for Agile development itself, which is you have to learn. You have to learn about the process. You have to learn about yourself. You have to learn what works for different teams, because what we know is that some teams are going to take to pair programming easily. Others, it's going to be a little bit more of a struggle. And so you should have in mind a sort of an experimental approach. Okay. Well, I'm going to try this, and here's what I'm going to try. I know Linda said I should take a break. Well, how often should I do that? Maybe I'll try 90 minutes. She said 90 minutes. So maybe I'll set a little alarm, and I'll try that. And I'll see how that works. 90 minutes might work for me, well, but maybe that's not enough time. Maybe that's too long. You should have in mind some little experiment that you're doing all the time. Whether it's something that you want to improve about your own life, or whether it's something you want to try in your organization, that's really the heart or the message of Agile, is taking little steps where every little step is about an experiment. And when we get to the end of that experiment, we bring everybody in and we say, well, how is that working for you? Should we try? And now you decide what little experiments you're going to do in the next iteration. So development becomes a series of small steps where each step is an experiment, and you learn with everybody who's involved. You learn how the team works, you learn about the product, you learn about the market, you learn about the customer, just like Pollyanna was talking about this morning. No better way to do that than little small steps.
So what does that mean for, potential managers out there? I don't know what it's like over here in the States. I'm assuming from the conversations I had with people, it's similar, because you have some people who, rather than accepting that they don't know what they don't know, or some of the stuff that they know that they don't know, they would rather pretend that they know and move forward with a bad decision rather than take the time out to learn, like you said, along with everybody else.
The requirement for an experiment has to be the realization that you don't know. And that certainly holds us up to a greater extent than we realize, both at a personal level and at a team level and an organizational level. The lack of openness, the lack of realization of the unknown unknowns makes it so that we're a little reluctant to experiment. The other part is that we might be open to experiment, but we're not open to failure. We're open to experiment as long as it always works.
And proves our hypothesis right?
And proves that whatever we thought was the way it was going to be is truth. So it certainly won't work if you don't have both an openness to realizing that you might be wrong and an openness to failure. And in fact, all the research on personal change shows that one thing that will hold you back is not being open, not believing that you can change, not believing that failure is okay. So this fits in with another talk that I've given a lot recently about mindset, that many of us hold what's called a fixed mindset, that we believe we have the truth or we don't. We know it or we don't. And what we want to strive for is the belief in an Agile mindset, that whatever I believe today, I believe, but I can get better, I can grow, I can improve, I can be better at anything if I am determined and I want to work at it and I'm willing to fail. It's for some people a big step.
It is, and one of those steps that people like you, obviously doing the great work that you're doing out there and helping some people, and hopefully you'll be able to help a lot more. So for the people, I mean, you provided us with a lot of great information, and I'm sure there's going to be many people watching this right now who are going to recognize that value and take some of the things that you've suggested on board to improve their working life and personal life. But for those people who would like to know a little bit more about your services, to potentially buy your book, how can they get hold of more information or that relevant information?
They can check out my website, lindarising.org, or they can send email to me, linda@lindarising.org. And when I'm not on the road, I am pretty good about answering email. Love to talk about change.
Awesome. And your book name again is?
Fearless Change.
Fearless Change. So there you have it, Linda Rising, talking about things which are relevant to all of us, not just in the Agile community, but in our personal lives as well. So, you do well to take on board some of that and just think about some of the things that you, me, all of us might be able to change in our lives, because by changing our lives, we could also have a change and an impact on the world. Adi Shakoya at Agile Development Better Software Conference with Linda Rising. Thank you very much again for your time.
Thank you.